Johnson again, ole ole. Johnson again, ole ole. Johnson again. Johnson again. Johnson again, ole ole. Has that been on a loop in everybody's heads pretty much constantly? Johnson again, ole ole. Johnson again, ole ole. Johnson again. Johnson again. Johnson again, ole ole. Get him out. Get him out. I want Ange Postecoglou out of this club right now. Right, he's done what he came to do. He won the UEFA Cup. Now it's a disgrace. 22 defeats. No, I'm not. Just no, it is what it is. Did it was anyone expecting much today? I don't know. I don't know. Was anyone expecting anything today? They've been on the Raz all week. Well, half a week. Most of them are probably all hungover. Like on a hangover, I find it hard just getting up from the sofa to get a glass of water from the, from the kitchen. Can't blame them for struggling to play an elite level football game. Yeah, I mean, look, Praetorian Dwarf says up top, are you still Ange in? Yes. I'll say this up front. So I did a podcast before the game. It sounded like I was driving up the M25. And I thought I turned the radio all the way down. But I guess it must have been up just a slight bit because I was on the M25 driving along, obviously. And it's quite noisy, quite loud, very rainy as well. So what I did with the pod afterwards is I applied like a vocal enhancer thing with the editing software that I use. But the vocal enhancers, because I didn't realize that the radio was still on, like maybe on like volume 1 or 2 or something. This vocal enhancer has picked up the faintest mutterings from the radio as well. So all throughout this sort of pod I did earlier on, where I was reflecting on the season and sort of half previewing the Brighton game, but not really at all. It's mostly talking about the Europa League and everything. There's this like really horrifying, like almost demonic kind of whispering in the background, which is quite unpleasant. Yeah, we lost to Brighton. Not very nice. Wonder goal at the end, wasn't it? But I'm not going to have a referendum on Ange Postecoglou. I've said what I've said about him this season, and I'll stand by it. At the time, I was reacting to things that I was seeing. I'm not going to weasel out of that. I'm not going to say, "Oh no, I didn't mean it," because I did mean it. But I think what a lot of people who are like really, really, or prior to the Europa League and everything, people who are really pro Ange or people who have followed Ange throughout his whole career, sort of neglect to sort of realize is that I wasn't obliged to give the fella anything. I didn't owe him anything, and now I do. He's delivered a Europa League, massive trophy, one of the biggest trophies we've won in 40 years since the last time we won that. It's given me a quality, given the whole of Tottenham an incredible last few days. And he'll be, we'll be buzzing off of that for a long time to come. He deserves an opportunity to go into the next season, in my opinion, and I owe him that. I personally think we all owe him that. So, let's just have a good summer, get a couple more players in. I'm quite interested to see what that Johnny Cardoso's got when he plays when they play Chelsea in a few days' time, whenever that is. Blah blah blah. I asked for a few questions going into this one. I didn't get many. Lazy you lot, to be honest. But I did get some. Let's start with Spotify. I only realized quite recently that, there are comments on Spotify. Ben said, crazy background noise. Did you record it driving through Mordor? M25? Might as well be. Phil First says, Jack, should we try and bring Luca, I'm guessing Modric, back for next season now he's leaving Real? No, I think I love him, don't get me wrong, an incredible player, but I think, and there's a lot of revisionism going on about even Perisic right now because he's had a good season in the Eredivisie. But even Perisic, who was an absolute physical specimen at about, what was he, 34, 35 years old? People are forgetting, he really struggled to keep up in the Premier League. He really did. And Luca, come on, man. He's like 40 years old. You know? I know he's fit and I know he's an exceptional player, but no, not for me. I wouldn't no. The wages you want are too big. Just MLS or Saudi for Luka Modric, in my opinion. Pat Bosto says, aren't you at all worried that this week has been the mother of all crack paperings? Now the will to make the change seems to have faded out. I've got a bad feeling about the first half of next season. Yep, maybe, Pat, maybe it is, but also at the same time, as you say there, it is. If it is a crack papering, it is the mother of them. And I think, to be honest, I don't think it's just sentiment alone. I think really, there's more bad will, at least, that can come from sacking a manager that's just delivered what he did. I imagine he will be under close scrutiny. I imagine that he won't have long to put things right. So we'll see. I don't know. To put things right in the league, that is. I just don't think you can. I don't think you can sack the guy that's done that. I don't think it's a good look for the club. I don't think the players will be happy about it. I just don't think you can do it. I don't think you can. Ted Piker, which amused me, said, should Ange be given the opportunity to defile his own legacy, which I found amusing. And yes, I do think he should. Josh at J994 Coys said, should we take the Mathis Tell option? How much should we offer Bayern? I do like Mathis Tell. I do think 50 million, I can't remember if it's euros or pounds, whatever it is, because 50 million pounds is about 43 million euros. Near enough, maybe even be more like 45. I think that's too much. I think he is an exciting player. I think he is very promising. But if Spurs aren't particularly cash rich, as we've heard, I think it's a lot of money to spend on him. And yeah, I think we need a big midfielder first. Is that Johnny Cardoso? I don't know. But yeah, look, if we can get him for 20, 25 mil, let's do it. But to be honest, mate, I'm just throwing around arbitrary figures. I don't know how much money Tottenham have to spend. I don't really know. Do you know what I mean? Whenever we do this stuff, whenever we talk, wow, if I'm going to spend this or I'm going to spend that, we are literally, really, for the most part, basing it all on having played Championship Manager or FIFA or something like that, where there's some form of transfer element involved. think the reality of the way these deals happen, the structuring of them, the masses of money that is exchanged between clubs for footballers, there's so many considerations to be had that really these conversations are, they are what they are. But to entertain the point, yeah, maybe half of what we were initially quoted, which is £50 million. Apparently, they have no interest in bringing him back. So, let's see what we can do. Nate at State of Coys says, should we should we be celebrating being the 37th best team in Europe this much? Is it harder to win the League Cup? Would we have celebrated that as much? It's a good question whether or not it's harder to win the League Cup. In some ways, yes. In other ways, no. I think. I do think the toll that it takes on players traveling, playing in unfamiliar places, playing against unfamiliar teams, so you're not as kind of aware of their style or the whatever, right? Or as aware of the context around them. I do think Europe offers its own unique set of challenges. Obviously, the League Cup will require you to beat a Chelsea or a Liverpool or a Manchester City at some point along the way, but sometimes it doesn't. And also, you can argue that those teams don't always take it fully seriously, whereas in the Europa League, you come up against a Galatasaray, a Lyon, somebody like that. They're going to give you a game. I think because we won it this week, I'm going to say it's harder to win the Europa League. But no, I don't think we would have celebrated winning a League Cup as much, because whether or not it is harder, it's not as prestigious. It just isn't. And I'm not saying that as any sort of dig to Newcastle fans or anything. They're quite right to enjoy their success. And if we win a League Cup next year, I think we should enjoy it. I would love to see Tottenham get into the habit of winning things, and that would be great. The funny thing is, I think actually having won the Europa League, we would probably celebrate winning a League Cup quite massively. I don't think 250,000 people would show up for a trophy parade for a League Cup, if I'm honest. But I still dare say people would be very happy about it. AJ Kitch 47 says, I think the new CEO and Fabio will have their say on the coach. Yep. I mean, there's a lot of talk that Fabio Paratici doesn't like Ange Postecoglou. But I still, as far as I'm aware, Fabio Paratici is he actually definitely a member of staff yet? I don't know if he is. I know it's kind of basically done, but I don't think it is done yet. Yeah, see, 2 days ago that it says it's looking imminent, but he's still not definitely in. And I wonder if part of this has been about Ange. It's quite interesting. Andy Perry, hello mate, says, has the performance in the league tainted your connection with the players, even though we are champions of Europe? It had done, but then, because going into this sort of Europa League final, there was a big part of me that was like, I don't really like many of the players in this team. Like, I'm not really in love with many of them. Now I love them all. And now they're all my pals. And I don't think that will ever change, really. So you know, I think that's yeah. I think that's what I'll say. Fuzzy Dunlop 14 at Shipley 1988 says, should we still be worried about league performances? Yeah, probably. I still think, there is something there to keep an eye on, but let's take Angelos at his word when he says that we were distracted by the Europa League, blah 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 blah. Like let's give him a chance. At Benji Spud says, main points of improvement for next season. What players should we be targeting? Players we should be getting rid of. Sentimentality aside. Who should we be getting rid of? That is a good question. I don't know if there's many players I'd actively really want to get rid of. Because then I sort of feel like we're just going to be short again. The problem is, like, Basuma seems like one of the sort of key candidates to get biffed off. I think there's been some talk already that we're looking for buyers this summer for him. And it's a shame. And I can understand that because when he's brilliant, he's man of the match in a European final, which still in my opinion, I think he was the other night. I do think he was man of the match against United. And when he's not man of the match, he's often quite frustrating and inconsistent and everything like that. So I do get why people have the sort of the feelings that they do towards Basuma. And if we can get some good money for him, maybe we could replace. We need a really, really good number 6, don't we? We need. I don't know if Cardoso is that. Like, I don't. I really don't. But we need to brighten ourselves a Rodri. That's what we need. That's what we really need. And when you ask me who that is, I don't know. It's not my job. But yeah, that's what we need. IMHO, a Rodri. Insightful, eh? And also, if we got good money, I'd probably also still bin Richarlison. And I feel the funny thing is, I say that with less gusto than I was saying it a few weeks ago because he was so good in the final. And there is something I've got to give him. There is something about Richarlison that when he's on the pitch, the ball does tend to gravitate towards him. He is very good at holding it up. He's very good at being combative and all that. Combative? Don't know, whatever. I do like him a lot in some ways. But I just also feel like if we could get good money for him, there's a wealth of wonderful attacking players out there who may stay fitter for longer than he does, who may convert chances more effectively than he does, and also do the things that he does very well. I don't. I think my most brutal take is, but we won't do it. We won't do it. But I think my most brutal take would be that we should replace Vicario. But I'm not going to say that chest out. I'm just kind of saying that as a little miniature aside. Lee's saying, going to enjoy the summer, but we can't make the same mistakes as last summer and sell players like Biss. I'm assuming you mean like selling like Højbjerg, for example. I don't think you can sell Biss personally either. I wouldn't like us to, but I kind of feel like we might. I'm not so sure. Zeros and ones says so many teams have done the double over this season. Yeah. I'm interested to know. I'm interested to know if the whole. So I've seen some people have the worry that because we've lost so many games this year, that it's going to mean that teams feel like they can beat us and all that type of thing. I hope not. That would be annoying, wouldn't it? Rich says fans getting carried away with emotions. 8 games into next season, it'll be Ange out again. I don't really know what side of the fence he's on, really. Though he does have an Ange Postecoglou profile picture, so maybe that. Jask says, I don't understand how we can see out a 1-0 to United in a final but can't do it against Brighton, who had nothing to play for. Sets early doubts the next season. Would love to be wrong. Yeah, maybe. I think also, I know what we're saying because Stephanie's also said this result would have happened if we won the Europa League or not. I do think let's just take this one on face value and just see that they have been drinking quite a lot the past few days. Sort of. That's what we say. James Yee Paratrooper says, "You people are too reactionary and have zero gratitude." Just adding some balance in there. Simply A says, Liverpool and Arsenal over the last 10 years have been in the Europa League a few times and failed to win it. We get slaughtered for winning it. I don't think we're getting slaughtered. I think I know what you're saying, mate, but I think, to be honest, the majority of the reaction I've seen has been very positive, even from rival fans and stuff like that. I've seen plenty of, funnily enough, I've seen quite a lot of Liverpool fans all giving it their nice one, Spurs, proper club, and all that type of thing. So we'll see. Who knows? Daniela Stewart says the keeper was the best player on Wednesday. Fine. Yeah. I mean, I don't think he was, but he nearly gifted a goal to Manchester United right at the end, and it led to Mickey van der Ven's clearance. I'm just saying simply, if we're saying he was the best player, he wasn't, but he made that wonderful save from Shaw at the end, and look, it was just a flippant thing when I was put in the position of saying what would I definitely do to change things next season. Freddie Nelson says finishing 17th and getting in the Champions League is quite funny thinking about it. It is quite funny. And that's it, isn't it? We won a cup and that's that. Villa didn't get. I didn't even think to check because I just switched over to Chelsea Forest because I wanted to see how that one ended. But yeah, I didn't see who got it. I'm assuming Newcastle got it. Did they? Getting quite a few other like Ange out type comments as well, which I'm just saying I'm not gonna go through today because is what it is. this is probably a good point to say that for the last time this season, at least anyway, this show has been sponsored by NordVPN. Now, the thing is, it's not just a disingenuous ad read because, as I've said previously, I have actually been a NordVPN customer for quite some time. I do a lot of remote working in cafes, working in various different offices and stuff like that. I freelance, so, I go from place to place. And I like the peace of mind knowing that with NordVPN, I have internet security. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's when you're inputting bank details, passwords, all that type of thing, it's good. It gives you an extra layer of protection. A lot of people have been talking about in the aftermath of our Europa League win as well. Did you see Bergvall's interview on Swedish TV? Did you see Sonny's interview on Korean TV? Did you see a Doggy's interview on Italian TV? Did you see all these different players? Did you see Cuti Romero having another interview with the Argentinian media where he said something cryptic? Now, if you do want to see all of these different things from all of these different places all around the world, you can actually also use NordVPN to do that. If you want to tune into various different countries, Netflixes or Amazon Primes or whatever else streaming service that you use, you can do it in that way. You can switch a virtual location, just a couple of clicks. There's an app for your Fire Stick, most smart TVs, iPads, phones, iPhones, Android, all of it. There's an app for all of it. You can get on NordVPN, and you can change your location, as I say, and you can watch all of those interviews. You watch all of those films, all the art house cinema from all around the world at the click of a button. You can, once you've signed up as well, you can also use your NordVPN on up to 10 devices. So you can basically cover your whole internet ecosystem, if you like, your own personal ecosystem. So if you want to support the show, if you want to make the show look popular, and if you want me to get more sponsors next year and just, reap the rewards of my hard work podcasting, you can sign up for NordVPN with my exclusive code. So to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/roost and use the code roost. The link will also give you 4 months extra on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. You can also find the link in the description box. That's wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast. So thank you very much, Nord. Get on it. Get on NordVPN. Spurs. It's been a funny season, hasn't it? It's been a funny season. I think in most instances, I would say today has been a bit of a thud, a bit of a return back down to earth in some ways, but not really. Not really, to be honest, because I'm still buzzing from the Europa League. And I know there's a lot of there's minutiae of conversation and all that type of thing around this result and around the league form and all that type of thing. But I do feel like Wednesday night did take a massive metal crowbar to a lot of that and smash it to pieces just for a while, just in my mind, just for a while. I'm not policing you. I'm not telling you how to feel, but just for me, for a bit, it's done that in. I didn't have any faith that he'd be able to get that over the line on Wednesday. And he did it. So now I'm going to have faith in him when he says that season 3 can be better than season 2. let's see what he can do. Let's see where it can go. But it has been funny because when we were winning earlier on in the game, like when we, at the start game from when we were winning, I was really happy about that. I liked the idea of finishing 14th. Of I wouldn't have liked the idea of finishing 14th at the start of the season. Don't get me wrong, but I liked us moving up the table a bit, finishing ahead of a few of these different teams. I don't know if it would have stayed that way anyway because of results and the way they went elsewhere. Um, but yeah, it was a bit annoying to see us concede as many goals as we did. But you know, the squad have all been on the lash. It just kind of is what it is, I think, for me today. But this league season has been difficult. It has, and as I say, a lot of what I've said about Ange, I'm not backing away from. I'm not weaseling out of. I'm not saying, "Oh, I was so wrong. How wrong was I?" I apologise, unequivocally, Ange, because I feel like throughout all of this, really, I mean, if there are receipts there, at least on here, I'm a bit more knee jerk on Twitter, and I say stuff for more of an effect on Twitter. But when I am talking on here, I am tending to try and be a bit more considered and whatever. And like for a lot of the people who have been sort of angry at me in the wake of us winning the Europa League, like very pro Ange people, I think quite the opposite. I've not derided his achievements elsewhere. I've never commented on the fact he's Australian or anything like that because genuinely I don't really think that's fair. And I don't, it's just it is kind of xenophobic in a way. It is kind of, Eurocentrist and all that type of thing, right? I don't do that because I don't agree with it. I'm not expecting a medal for it. I'm just saying I don't do that. Um, so I feel like some of the vitriol I've received from like ardent Ange people has been a little bit kind of weird. And as I said in the pre-match, I think if your reaction to a joyous occasion is to like get all venomous and hateful, you probably need some therapy. So something to consider. But sure, shove it down my throat, say I've got egg on my face, all that type of thing. But I'm not entirely sure that I do. In some respects, I do because I think the tweet that Vince Rigari picked out, I'd said something like, he's a charlatan and respectful, I considered. But I said he was a charlatan and that he'd go down in the same sort of breath as Ali Dia. And so I probably deserved a bit of medicine for that. I don't mind that. I don't mind somebody giving me a bit back from that. Spoke a bit too soon. Fine. But a lot of the stuff I think I've said about him this season, about the league form, about the way we've played at times, I don't think has been particularly unfair. I don't think it's been particularly harsh. Maybe at times. But I record these straight. I'm a Spurs fan. My loyalty's to Spurs, not to Ange Postecoglou. I mean, it is now. I've got a certain loyalty to Ange now after what he delivered on Wednesday. But what my point is, like before that, I didn't. My loyalty has been to Spurs, not to the man, not to the manager. And I sort of stand by a lot of what I've said about him this year. And I don't think that just from winning the Europa League, all of those concerns go. Just to talk to what other people are saying. But my point is, my perspective hasn't changed in the respect of like I'm suddenly saying it's all right, it's all okay, and there's not going to be any issues, and there's not going to be any rocky patches or anything like that whatsoever. I'm simply saying that now I have more faith, and I feel like there's a debt of gratitude. There's a debt to be repaid to this guy that has given us. Look at that! Look at those! Look at that trophy parade! Look at those scenes. whether you like it or not, he is a big, big part of the reason why that happened. And I think he's earned the right to take that momentum and carry it forwards because it's a good starting point for something next year. And you know what we saw in the first 10 games of his tenure how good we can potentially look. If he manages to somehow get that back again after we've just won a Europa League and they're spurred on, no pun intended, by the belief and whatever from that, then, you know, could be onto a good thing. Will Liverpool be as good next year? Will Manchester City just come back and dominate everything? I don't know. Could be a gap there next year. Hopefully Arsenal don't fill it. Maybe we can. Jane Poland says, Ange, in. Cold Shot says, if we claim to be a big club, then let's do what other big clubs do and sack Ange. Xavi is there waiting. It would make sense. I hope Levy does what's best for the club. Yeah, but how do we know Xavi's that good? I don't know. I'm just saying. Like, how do we know? Mont Joe says, if we keep him, we're wasting a season, millions of transfer money. He isn't good enough for this level. He beat a few championship level clubs and a bad Manchester United. But he still did it, mate. He still did it. And plenty before him haven't done. And that's kind of where I'm at. George says, what would you rather? Champions League win and get relegated, or come second, win an FA Cup and a League Cup? Well, that I don't ever want to see Tottenham get relegated, to be honest. We'll come second, win the FA Cup and the League Cup, and then win the Champions League the year after. And he also said, would you rather see Spence in the shower or Danso? Neither, actually, mate, to be honest. But, you know, maybe I'm the weird one. I don't know. Michael Tamarit says, give Ange one more full season. If it's bad again, get Poch back after the World Cup. we didn't get 40 points either. That's quite funny. Yeah, what's his name? The Brighton manager, 32 years old. They were saying he's younger than the Premier League itself. That's quite mad. How old is Will Still? I don't know if any accounts ever told us that at any point this season. He's isn't he going to go and take over? Who's he going to? Who's he? Yeah, new Southampton manager. So there you go. That'll be interesting, won't it? Not at all. I don't like Southampton, and I won't be paying any attention to them. So I don't know why I said that. Liam Hennessy says he'll only last the first 10 games of next season. Maybe. But maybe not. Who knows, Liam? I don't. I'm going to do a few more pods this week. This isn't the end of the pods for the year. There's still a bit more to talk about, especially in the glow of Bilbao and all that type of stuff. So there's going to be at least 2 or 3 more. Then over the summer, I'm going to need to think of some stuff to do for Patreon, but I've got a kind of idea that I'll do. So if you want to join in the fun, join me at Patreon, patreon.com/RTRpod. It's a great way to support the show. I appreciate it very much. There's now a growing and more active community there as well on Patreon. So come in and chat to some lovely people. It's a bit of a funny note to end the season on this one, but I did a pre-match pod to this, whereas a lot more heart, a lot more soul, a lot more talking about everything. It's just it's almost quite apt, isn't it, that this last game of the season has ended in this way. That we've been battered 4-1, but still the stands are in full voice. The scenes pre-match were pretty incredible. And we just won a European trophy midweek, lest we forget. So let's just enjoy that for a bit longer. Let's see what the summer brings and go again. I'm sure I'll do some of these reactions for like pre-match games and stuff, and not forgetting the Super Cup, which is very exciting. So we'll do that. But yeah, I guess just to anybody that hasn't listened to the pod earlier, again, I want to say thank you for everybody for watching, for everybody that's watched, listened to, supported the show this year, that has commented, shared, left a rating, left a review, liked, subscribed, all those times that I've begged you to do that stuff at the end of each pod. And if you are listening, do all of those things as well. But thank you very much. Thanks to everybody that has tuned into these all year long. It's been, been an interesting season, hasn't it? But one that we're always going to remember. So that's good. But yeah, big thank you to everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. It's been a weird season, but we won a European Cup. And that's pretty bloody good. So enjoy the summer. Enjoy the Champions League final. Enjoy hopefully watching Chelsea lose the Conference League. Women's Euros. Club World Cup. Football doesn't stop. Doesn't stop. The Spurs at least get to kick back and relax for a while. So anyway, up the Spurs. Thanks again. Much love. Come on, you Spurs. Champions of Europe. You'll never sing that.